We are all waiting for clinical trials.
Who's all? I'm not. More
This is
important,
how it is explained to us. Is this the only approach how to investigate or study cannabis and endocannabinoids?
Yeah, we need a whole entirely different approach from my perspective. Because what we're trying to do is find an average dose of some tested drug for the average person. So that means if you're in the middle of that bell-shaped curve, they're making a drug that is designed for you. But if you need more or less for whatever biochemical reasons, then it's all wrong. So we select for this homogenization. And this is, again, because the people who run the world are narrow-minded. And they want rigid answers. They don't want flexibility that allows for individual responsibility and ultimately creativity.
So I'm wondering what the differences are. Some are researching synthetic, isolated single cannabinoids, some single cannabinoids but in natural form, and then we have natural extracts. Because sometimes we get the impression it's all the same, it's all cannabis, but is it?
Well, you can make attempts by continuously adding back the compounds that you purify, but it would make much more sense to find the strain that matches a particular person's needs. And to me, that's the only sensible way for a person to really benefit most from using cannabis is they have to become friends with the cannabis plant, and they've got to have an exchange with it. So you try this and you get a certain effect, and then, but it's not quite satisfying, so you try a few other, oh, this works better. And I think it was it Hanus who just showed that there were different categories of strains, 5 different categories. So, you know, it's very likely that you could identify a category that would be in general better for you, and then you could within that category try a variety of strains, because the pharmaceutical industry and people who embrace that approach, they're looking for the magic molecule that's going to have the magic curative effect. And if we could only make it a little better, it'll cure cancer. But right now it's killing the people, but sometimes somebody gets cured. And if we could just improve and improve. And they've been saying that for how many decades now? Because their fundamental principles are flawed. They don't understand how life works. That's the way our medical, scientific, biomedical establishment works. They don't have a guide of underlying understanding. They have little pieces of knowledge, and they keep expanding within those little pieces, but they don't see the forest for the trees. What we do now is we'll do animal experiments, for example, and then we'll inch our way into human experiments. But cannabis is completely non-toxic, and I can tell you no matter what dose of oil, way beyond what anybody's going to take, because I know people who've taken that. You know, one person I know took 50 grams in a day of oil, high concentration THC oil. But what we should be doing is if a person goes and wants to become part of a study, they should, as a street person, getting their cannabis from whatever means they want, just part of society. They should be able to go to their educational institution, medical educational institution, and say, take a blood draw and do these tests, not on the superficial stuff that you're looking at. You can include some of that, but let's look at how energy flows to create a cancer cell, a healthy cell, so we can start to see if I go and you do this blood work before I do cannabis, and then I go and I do cannabis for X number of weeks, and my tumor is gone. Well, don't you want to know what exactly my metabolic profile was to begin with? What you can do is you can sequence now the entirety, not just of the DNA, but expression profiles. So you could look at the nature of the fine expression of the DNA.
So what do you think is most important?
The most important thing to characterize a cancer cell is what fuel is it using to live. Because if you turn off the fuel, the cancer cell dies. It's that simple.
How does the patient know that he found the real strain for himself?
Because the only real thing you care about, how are you feeling? You want to feel better every day, no matter what you're dealing with. You see, that's the whole fallacy of our way of thinking. We think we're born and we got to keep going until we're like 20-something, and now it's time to age, and then we're going to die. Well, that whole perspective is fundamentally stupid, from the way I look at things using a different physical perspective than the one we are taught, that has solid foundations and credentials in the Nobel laureate Ilya Prigozhin's work.
The patients are in a position that they should find the real medicine for themselves. So it's not a regular protocol of prescribing cannabis.
No, not at all. See, what you basically are doing is you're replacing doctors in many respects with your own responsibility, because ultimately the best hope anyone has for fixing anything is to find out what the imbalance is that they have. And almost all of us, the imbalance is excess free radical production, which is what the cause of aging and all age-related illnesses. And that cannabis inhibits in all situations because of how it balances the fuel supply. Sugar is more polluting, fat is fixing.